Hello and welcome to The Real Deal. I'm Lisa Redl.
I'm Candace Chisholm.
Hello, Candace Chisholm.
Hello, Lisa Redl. You look gorgeous.
I was just going to say the same thing to you.
Man.
I know.
We should be going out after this or something.
We should be
Yeah.
partying with my pregnant belly.
Yeah.
Thanks to Chris did this magic.
Yes.
Look at that.
I know. It's like I literally said she's a magician. Although she has a lot to work with starting with you.
I showed up looking very haggard today. And
Did you say you were just smelling like yesterday?
I said Odie yesterday is my perfume. And we have some magicians here that help us with things like hair and makeup. We're also doing a lot of things on the set. So as we continue our show, we get extra add-ons. We've got a new beautiful coffee table.
Yes.
Made by Wade. We'll put his website right here.
Yes.
And
our new logo's up in the back,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. And of course, I think we had this for our other show, but it's always good to point it out that we have all of our tags there. So if anybody wants to reach us or tag us in anything, that's the way to do it.
yeah, so things are rolling with the show.
Yeah.
And today, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of, especially on social media, people are talking about how cold it is.
Yes.
And they're saying, oh, churches should open their doors for the homeless. They're giving all these kind of solutions, but it seems like they're the keyboard warriors who are telling everybody else how to help with our more
Less fortunate.
population. So that's what the topic's about today.
I think it's such an important thing because really, Christmas is such a hype, right? And rightly
Whatever
so.
goes up must come down. It's gravity.
It is, man. And yeah, I know about gravity. But no, it's true. And I feel that, January always seems to be one of those months where there's such a decline in people volunteering, people giving money particularly. And I get it, they've probably overextended themselves. But January
And
is...
February.
And February. And those are like some tough months for those people who are on the street or who are having a hard time making ends meet. The working poor. Those are some big, tough months. So.
And we live here in the Okanagan, and Kelowna is where we film this show, and we have a very high population because we are kind of a resort town. We have a high population of homeless people.
Yeah.
And so what we did is go out to the streets.
Yeah.
To talk to residents and ask them.
The burgeoning question of how would they, or what is the solution to homelessness? And you made a good point. Instead of just sitting behind your keyboard, let's have that conversation about what we can actually get done.
How, as a community, can we better support our homeless population?
I think more housing, of course, but maybe build the housing before you put it out there for the people, because then there's so many street people. Put them in first before you put the other, like people that are already home, because some people are already home, and then they go into low-income housing, and they've already got housing.
The solution? Yeah. Build something that is housed for people who have addiction issues. Don't ride them too hard, like the Gordon Place. It's full of addicts and drug addicts and drug dealers.
I was in Bel Air, Penticton, and they had schizophrenics, alcoholics, druggies, and then straight people, and it totally did not work.
Right.
Right? Everybody clashed.
Don't put all three drugs in that so you can use them there. That's not curbing it. It's giving you a place to get high.
What is the solution to getting people off the streets?
I don't know the solution, but a Band-Aid solution would be maybe have a rent control where people can afford rent, and then before summer comes, because that's the main tourists, right? Help them get off the street, and that would help the tourism, and it would help these people, and it will help the government build the houses for the homeless.
The solution is they need to give the people that really do need the housing, that appreciate the housing, they need to put those in there, and not the people that don't appreciate the housing and the drug addicts that won't appreciate it and get kicked out a month later. The screening progress needs to be different.
I think more rental housing for the people that aren't addicted and aren't alcoholics or don't have the mental illnesses of the working poor, because give them a place to live, and then they can actually work more.
There's 77 men in the beds, bunk beds. Snore and addicts and everything else. You put your whole different life from 8 different places in this world, and you put them in there, and you combine them with everybody. They're building everything that they shouldn't be building. Why make this place shiny when there's so much darkness stuck a half block away?
So housing seems to be a real need, especially in places like Kelowna, where it's 0% basically for housing.
Vacancy, yeah.
And rentals and sales.
Yeah, and you mentioned too that it's a resort town, so the prices are exorbitant here. So I think that street or that question is one that we should probably revisit soon and often.
Well, and we're not experts, but we have experts coming on the show. So coming up, we actually have some people from some local organizations who are not only talking the talk, they're walking the walk. Thanks so much for joining us, Randy. So how long have you been with the Gospel Mission?
I'm actually in my 18th year right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What got you into it?
Well, I had a background in pastoral ministry, and when I was in transition, this position opened up, so I went down, and actually I didn't have a lot of experience in the homeless sector, but in leading a team and directing, so I came on board. Our operation was very small when I started, about 17 staff, and a bit of a mom and pop operation, so we've grown since then, and it's been a good ride.
Was it kind of a wake-up call for you when you first began with working with the homeless to really see what they suffer on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think probably the big thing for me was coming to the realization that most people don't wake up one day and say, I think I'm going to be homeless. Everybody's got a story, everybody's somebody's son or daughter. So many of the people we serve have families, have children, and they're estranged, and a lot of times it's a matter of bad things that have happened to them, and they end up on the street.
Right, and I do see a lot about, lots of times they're adopted, lots of kids from adopted families. There's been a history of either physical or sexual abuse, things like that, so people don't see what led up to the decisions.
That's right. There's been some interesting studies in the States, and it's called adverse childhood experience, and what we've learned to ask ourselves when we see these people is not why are you doing this, but what happened to you?
What's your pain?
Yeah, what happened in the past that put you on a path that led you to here? And then try to give them hope and say there's a way off.
Right, in your experience, what's the best way that people, when we're in the community, what's the best way people can support our homeless population?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, first of all, getting rid of the stereotypes that people don't choose to be where they're at, that it's a matter of circumstances, and then realize that we're all pretty much the same. It could happen to any of us. And so start to understand who these people are, realize that these people too have hopes and dreams, and relationship is so important. They're not a population unto themselves. They're part of our society, and we need to embrace them as that and give them the help and support that they need.
Well, there's a big fear too, right? There's a fear associated, but in your experience, has there been a lot of reasons to have fear?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, you see some people, and many of them are dealing with mental health issues and things that will upset them and that. But no, when you get to know them, I don't think there's a great deal of fear.
Well, that being aggravated, so there is a lot of mental health that plays a role here. Yeah. A lot of people are like, well, why are some people choosing to sleep on the streets, especially in the cold? And already having a pre-existing mental illness, being packed like sardines into a place like the Gospel Mission. Yeah. Can you just explain a little bit about that misconception?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not a deluxe hotel, that's for sure. Our dormitory is very close, and there's some people that can't be in a crowd, they can't be in a closed place, and so for them, it's easier to stay outside. In fact, we've heard stories of people who have been on the street for a long time and they finally get housing. Oftentimes they can't even sleep in their bed to start. They'll actually sleep on the floor because they're just not used to it. Their body's so not accustomed to the comforts that you and I enjoy. So it's a real adjustment for them.
Right. One of the main reasons why I wanted to do this show was because at Christmas time it seems to be everybody's in the spirit of giving and everybody's just so generous. Mm-hmm. And then once January, February kind of comes, it's almost like that population is forgotten. I mean, we see them on the street. It is very cold outside. I mean, right. It's not ideal conditions for someone that's homeless. What are your guys' needs in terms of the community and getting involved with support?
Obviously, you know, we always have financial needs, and we've got our supporting constituency, which we appreciate. I think also volunteers. Oftentimes people want to come on and help at Christmas time because it feels good. And so oftentimes our volunteer population falls off a little bit in the new year. So if they want to get involved, come down and do that. And also just the practical needs. We give out a lot of coats, a lot of warm clothing, socks, toques, gloves, that sort of thing. So there's very practical ways that people can get involved.
Okay, so in your experience at the Gospel Mission the last 18 years, success stories, have you had, you know, because we did a feature on the streets talking to people, and you know, most of the people just needed housing. That was their main need.
Right. I often tell people we serve many and we rescue some, and that's the joy. Recently, in the last 2 years, we've had one fellow, he's known as Grandpa, and we have an outreach worker that goes out every morning and actually engages with people that aren't in the shelter. And our outreach worker found Grandpa sleeping in the bush, long beard. He needed glasses, but all he had was one lens left that he would take out and hold in his eye to see. And she started a relationship with him, was able to help him get assistance, some back pay from his retirement. He was 66 years old, and today he's housed. You would not recognize him if you saw him on the street compared to his picture. Shaved, happy, has his housing, has his support now, and he's got that network of friends that he can associate with. And it wouldn't have happened without establishing that relationship. I think a lot of times people who are on the street, they get into a vicious cycle and they lose hope. And it becomes so much their life that they think there is no other life, and so they need somebody to come alongside of them and say, you know what, we can help you do better. And by walking beside them and giving them the support we need, we see some great success
That
stories.
relationship. So what do you think is the difference between a man like that and somebody who is in and out of the shelter and can't seem to get on their feet and is stuck in that cycle? What's the main difference?
We see a lot of mental illness, as we see a lot of addictions, a lot of things like that. So in those cases where you see people cycle in and out, you continue to give them the support they need, try to get them to the services that they need. And the other thing we've found when you're dealing with this, especially in addictions, oftentimes people will do good, they'll have a clean time and then they'll relapse and fall. That's part of the cycle, so you help them get back into recovery again, and every time they have a recovery a little bit longer, it's a little bit better success. And so we've seen people, it takes, you know, maybe 2, 3, 4 years for them to come through that cycle. I think of Jackie. She was on the street for years, and if you knew her then, you would think that there's no hope for this case. Now she's happily has a job, has a car, living down in Penticton, and you wouldn't know she's the same girl. But it probably took about 8 years to just walk with her and continue to support her until she came to that point.
And build that relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to quickly talk to you about safe injection sites. What are your thoughts? Because a lot of people in the community, again, you know, we're seeing things at elementary schools. We see there's disposed needles in places where kids are playing.
Right.
And we do have a very, very, it seems this is the place to be in the Okanagan for people that are struggling on the street.
I think a lot of people think, they look at harm reduction and think that we're enabling people.
That's, yeah.
My view is that I believe in harm reduction, because I think our job is to keep people safe and try to keep people alive. For me, the key is harm reduction with engagement, so that you're starting to build that relationship and maybe challenging them or giving them hope that they can do something different. So the other thing I think with people suffering with addictions, there's a lot of shame that goes with it, a lot of self-loathing, and they feel bad enough, so we don't need to put them down. We need to come along and say, hey, you're important, you're loved, you have worth as a person,
Right.
and we will walk alongside with you and help you overcome this and start to do those things. So, yeah, I'm very much in favor of harm reduction if you've got that engagement with it.
Right. We're going to add someone else to the conversation. Pastor Lawrence East, I'm sure you know each other,
Right.
With Metro Community. He's been working with the homeless as well. How do you guys work together, the different resources?
Well, obviously we serve a lot of the same clients and the same guests, so there's communication between our staff and his staff. I think the other thing is when Lawrence and I get together and chat, we talk about our ministries and what we do, and just to support each other. Also to make sure that we're not duplicating services.
Right.
So we're aware of what each is doing, and we each have our unique niche, and we try to do the best at what we're doing.
So collaboration, not a
Yeah.
competition for services.
Exactly, yeah.
Coming up next, Lawrence East joins our conversation. Thanks, Randy. Welcome, Lawrence. So what I think is really cool, Randy, I don't know if you heard him talking, he was just saying how you guys are kind of all working together in the community to make sure that you guys are all filling all the holes and all the needs for our homeless community. Can you talk a little bit about Metro and what you guys do?
Sure. Metro's existed for about 10 years. At our heart, we're a church, but we're pretty unusual in that we're very actively involved in the vulnerable population, caring for them, being involved in their lives, getting involved in creating social enterprise businesses, opportunities for employment, and participating along with other social agencies in helping find collaborative solutions to the bigger systemic issue, and making sure that people's dignity and their individual worth is not forgotten in that bigger picture.
And how do you do that?
There's a number of ways. I think relationship is the key one. We've sort of tried very hard to build relationship with people over a long period of time. I think so often we kind of create these metrics that we attempt to sort of evaluate success based on if the certain ingredients are in place and, for example, somebody's housed, there's a couple of support structures around them. Now, why aren't they recovering? Why have they not kicked their habit? Why have they not reintegrated into society properly? And the reality is that each of us as human beings have this deep desire to belong. And we need a place to belong. And so we are a community first and foremost at Metro, and we love partnering with others, but at our heart, our values drive us. And those values are making sure that people discover their God-given worth and dignity. And that journey is a long journey. It's not something that takes place in 1 year. You have to be prepared to walk alongside people for a decade, 2, 3 decades.
So one guest that I had a couple of years ago was actually a psychiatrist who ended up on the streets of East Vancouver. And what he said was, I just needed someone to believe in me.
Sure.
And just that alone was enough for him to get back on the road to recovery and get his life back.
I think for each person, there's a deep desire for relationship and a desire to, with their brokenness, be accepted and loved. And that takes all sorts of forms. You don't want to enable. You want to give people resilience and the capacity to succeed. And those things can't be done by one organization. So if you start to have a shared set of values within a whole network of organizations, then you can actually hold those vulnerable people at the center and really empower them and continue to pour into them over time. And yeah, they may not ever have their earthly family to rely on, and that's always going to be a painful scar. But I think if you can create networks of support and a place where they can belong, and we often joke that Metro is kind of like Cheers, if you remember Cheers from way back. It's a place where everyone knows your name. And so we've actually seen a lot of people, now that we're seeing more and more people get housed through that sort of housing first strategy, we're actually seeing a lot of people come back into our drop-in center, into our coffee shop, into our social enterprises, and on Sundays into our gatherings, because they're saying, you know what, I may be housed, but I actually need community. I need relationship, because I don't have a family I can turn to now, and that's powerful, and it makes a big difference.
A couple of things that I really like what you guys do is your Sunday services. You guys have a breakfast in the morning, and so people from the community can come just for the breakfast, or they can come for your service. And then you also have the coffee shop that's also run by people in the community. So it's that giving that community a sense of purpose and dignity and responsibility within your collaborative kind of situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, we partner with other organizations like the Gospel Mission. We make sure we're not duplicating resources. We're not wasting resources that are precious. And I think, we just we just had a massive community banquet. We call it a February feast. I heard you mention earlier that, there's all these resources that get poured into the community around Christmas, and then we call this period of time in January, February, the doldrums. Everyone forgets about those who are vulnerable. They feel like they've done their part. So we thought, what if we did a massive banquet in February so people could just remember that they're valuable and worthy of being celebrated. And we had almost 350 people at this banquet, and we partnered with the Gospel Mission with the food, and we had tons of volunteers, and we had a DJ for a dance, and we had musicians, and we had a First Nations dancer come in, and incredible presentation. And again, a lot of the volunteers were people who used to be homeless or experience homelessness and be on the street. It was incredibly dignifying for them to welcome others in and say, hey, it was like a big family reunion, because a lot of those people have been housed but in scattered sites, and so now they're seeing each other again for the first time in a long time. And so those are really powerful moments, and we try and create those moments so that people can reconnect and find community. And on a Sunday morning, breakfast is like that. We don't want to bait and switch. We don't want people coming to church because they have to. Right. We want them to come and find fellowship and belonging because they want to. So you can come and have breakfast. You don't have to stick around for a service. If you don't want to stay, have breakfast and leave. But we'd love you to stick around and make friends and start to belong. And the same thing with our drop-in space. There's never any agenda to try and force people into a place of believing one thing or another, but we do want to empower each person, and we want everyone to leave with this deep, sort of ingrained sense of their own worth and dignity.
What I really like about your church, because churches get kind of a bad rap, and one thing that's really, and our whole show, it's real, raw, relatable, and walking into your church, it's all those three things. I remember going in there, and there was, I think a dog peed on the floor, and then there was another woman yelling at a woman. It was just, but everybody was accepted, and it was one of the most real churches. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are in your journey. Everybody seems very welcome at your church, and there's something that you guys say in the beginning of each service.
Yeah, we have a community kind of prayer, like a liturgy that we say, and we talk about just that, that essence of what you've described. Thanks for selling it so well for us, by the way. And the fact that there are people, there are people from all walks of life there.
Yeah.
You can go into the bathrooms, and there might be some girls who are engaged in the sex trade who've come off the streets the night before, and they're just kind of cleaning themselves up, but they know it's a safe place to be, and that they're loved there and they're accepted. And you have lawyers and doctors and politicians and business people and middle class folks who have families. There's children running around.
Yeah.
People allowed to bring their pets in,
And no judgment.
And there's no judgment. And so we always say that we are a group of people who pursue God in an atmosphere of love where judgment's left at the door. And that is like this powerful statement that actually wasn't something I came up with. That was somebody who was on the street. He observed that was the kind of value, that was the atmosphere of the place, and he outlined it, and I thought that was brilliant. So we wrote it down, and it became our mission statement.
Well, it's so powerful because there is that belief that anyone that is religious doesn't like certain populations, and I found your church and how you do it is very welcoming.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, and I think the classic kind of comment we would make, and it sounds a little cliche, but we don't really think we're that religious. We're passionately engaged in following Jesus, but we believe deeply that the way of the kingdom of God is about relationship, and that each person has this incredible value. And so, we want to live by values. And so I think, again, when it comes to our drop-in center or anywhere else, when we say, hey, this is our set of values, people's behavior gets modified because it's not a set of rules that are imposed by those who have power on those who don't have power. But instead, it's a set of values that everyone can embrace. So if your behavior is not in accordance with those values, you're essentially a walking contradiction in yourself. And you have to evaluate that. And so it's in many ways, it's a sort of self-regulation. And over the last decade, we've seen people do all sorts of things that they would never do anywhere else in terms of taking ownership and taking pride in the space and making choices that perhaps they would never normally make because they've truly started to believe in themselves.
Well, that's one thing I remember actually was you had a garden in one of the downtown metro.
Yeah.
And how people were taking pride in it, and that if people were messing with the area, it was kind of like a family.
Right, and we're developing another courtyard space at the moment with a greenhouse and planters and stuff like that. We want it to be this oasis in the middle of a downtown, which is so typified by concrete and development, which is all good for a city, but we need these little green spaces of peace and these havens. And so I expect and fully anticipate that will also become one of those places that, those who perhaps don't have a garden of their own can take a sense of ownership and grow vegetables and have that dignifying experience of, oh man, I grew these tomatoes and now I get to make some food with those tomatoes and feed someone else with those tomatoes. And that's a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm. So clearly you guys are doing your part to help the homeless community and the people that are struggling in our community. How can we as citizens, not just here in Kelowna, but across Canada, better serve that population?
Well, I think there is always a number of events that happen, and I think if you can jump on board with something that raises awareness throughout the country, in your own neighborhood, in your own city, in your own locale, I think that's always powerful. I think when you do that, you start to erode stigmas that people have. I think that common misconception, which Randy alluded to before, is that people tend to forget that every single person has a story. And that each story is powerful, but for the grace of God go I, in the sense that it could be me. I mean, there's lots of people who we've encountered at street level who have stories that would boggle your mind in terms of how normal they seem, in terms of how they started off, and then one or two decisions or circumstances forced them down a path that just radically upturned their life in a horrible way. So there are all sorts of fascinating people that we come across and build relationship with. So yeah, let's erode stigmas. Let's get out there and show our support for organizations that do collaborate and use their resources well and make a difference with those who are experiencing mental health issues or homelessness or addiction. There's events like Coldest Night of the Year that happens across the country. I know the Gospel Mission are doing strides to end homelessness as well. There are all these things that, frankly, even if you don't raise a ton of money, if you can affect 5, 10, 15 people that you know and change their attitude about the human story at play, then you've done your part. And I think that's powerful.
Well, and money talks, and so we have the Kelowna Food Bank coming up after this, and one thing is lots of people say, oh, well, don't give homeless people money, they're just gonna buy drugs, and that's completely up to you if you wanna give people money on the streets, but if we have resources like both, the Gospel Mission and Metro and the Kelowna Food Bank, giving money to those organizations, because you guys know how to best serve the population. So how do people
You want to answer that?
give you all their money?
Well, yeah, give us a call, I guess, yeah. And get to know what we do and find something that relates to your passion. So, if it's the community, if it's feeding the homeless, if it's helping the people that can't afford their groceries through the food bank, find something that moves your heart and then get involved in it. And I would add too, not just your money, but if you go down and volunteer, take a tour of these places and be exposed to the people that we're serving, all of a sudden it takes that fear and that strangeness away, and you start to identify, and it really helps you as a community.
Yeah, if you can spend time listening to someone, it will radically change your perception. I think one of the most dignifying things you can do is listen to someone's story. And then you find yourself relating to that story. And then you realize, actually, I could be in your shoes. And all of a sudden, as you say, that stigma erodes, and you're able to relate in a powerful way. And so, yeah, absolutely. Don't just give from afar. Get involved. Go down. Get to know people. And expose your children to that as well. Let's make sure our next generation are not burdened by the same stigmas that our generation have been. Let's change our society that way.
Well, thank you guys for everything that you do. After the break, we're going to be having Tammy Williams from the Central Okanagan Food Bank talking about how we can better feed the community and people who maybe are struggling a little bit. adding to our conversation a very important piece to this puzzle, food. Welcome, Tammy.
Thanks, Lisa.
So tell me a little bit about what you guys at the food bank do.
Well, in a nutshell, we nourish our neighbors. We serve about 4,000 people a month. That's about 100 households a day. And it's a range of people, could be just about anybody. About 33% of our clients are children.
Well, we just saw the video about Kate. Do you want to talk a bit about people like that? Because there is this, again, a stigma or an understanding that only certain people, need the food bank.
Yeah, and as Lawrence and Randy both pointed out, I think there are real stereotypes and real stigmas. And why I like Kate so much is because Kate is just so relatable. She's just a little girl whose father lost his job. The family's sold what they can, and now they're in a position to need the food bank. Another reason I love Kate so much is because she's a great way to introduce people perhaps to food banks. I'm going to be doing a presentation at a daycare in a couple weeks. And when I was approached to do that, I thought, well, what kind of way can I bring a message about a food bank to these young children? And what better way to do that than with Kate? I'm hoping the kids can kind of understand who she is. And I don't know how much they'll be able to relate, but even if they take Kate home to their folks and talk to their mom and dad, hey, I saw this video today and this lady came and talked about the food bank, then maybe we can have Kate's the children's parents join us at the food bank as volunteers or perhaps donate.
Well, then if there's a Kate in their class,
which they very well
a
could
better
be.
understanding
Absolutely.
towards how easy it can happen to somebody.
Yeah.
Let's talk numbers. So across Canada, what are we looking at for hunger?
Well, Hunger Count 2018 was just released on February 5th, and 1.1 million visits to food banks from coast to coast to coast. It's an alarming number.
Again, what?
1.1 million visits to food banks across Canada.
Wow. Okay, that's mind-boggling.
And those statistics are fairly in line with ours. Well, our statistics are fairly in line with Hunger Count. 35% are children.
Wow. So we were talking a bit with Lawrence and Randy about money, and I know it's one of those things where it's, people want to donate what they want to donate, but what you guys can do with the money is amazing, because if I gave you $10, tell me what you could do with that.
Well, we can take that $10 and multiply it by 3. And that is thanks to great partnerships with grocers. So and we need cash for many things. We do need to keep the lights on as well at the food bank. We do need to be able to continue to provide the services. But with the relationships that we have, we really can turn cash into such a powerful tool in simply buying food.
Now, how do you work with these guys?
Well, we support Metro and the Gospel Mission simply by giving them food. A couple of the fellows from the Gospel Mission were actually in our warehouse today picking up some items to be able to take back to the Gospel Mission. And we do that with about 40 organizations in town.
Okay, and how important is this kind of relationship here? Go ahead, Lawrence, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think it's critical. We can't do what we do without partnerships. And I think with the food bank, we've had an incredible partnership for years now, where we might have an emergency need and we can pick up the phone and just say, hey, this unexpectedly has come up, can you step in and help us? And they might have something in reserve, or they can source something for us at the last minute. And if it's not that, it's just that usual sort of rhythm of being able to supply basic necessities that we then pass on to people who are in need. And so we might be getting somebody into housing, or it might be in our drop-in center, but whatever it is, we have a very close working relationship.
And who else do you guys work with?
We support Salvation Army. We support Mamas for Mamas. We have breakfast programs throughout School District 23. We create snack packs for kids for when they come into the food bank. Our reach is pretty significant.
So, and lots of times you go to an event, charity event, and they say, well, bring a non-perishable food item. And what kinds of items do you actually want, and what ones could you guys go without?
What we want in regards to food is, I think it's pretty easy to remember: peanut butter, pastas, pasta sauces, cans of tuna, cans of veggies, and fruits. One thing I like to say to people is that if you are going to donate food, put a bunch of things in a bag that would make a meal, make a complete meal, because we can take perishables as well.
So don't donate creamed corn or the like, just the things that you don't use in your cupboard. You want to use or donate things that people will use that you would use. Yeah. Right. And we're talking about dignity again.
Yeah. And when you talk about dignity, I'm not sure how many people know what our food bank even looks like. You came for a tour, and were you surprised?
I was. What I was surprised about was it looked like a grocery store. So what I really liked about that, and that's kind of what with Lawrence, the kind of things that you guys do in at the Gospel Mission too. It's that kind of dignity where you get in. There's a shopping cart there, so right away you feel like you're in charge. You're not in a mess hall where people are like, they're shopping. And different sections. There's the freezer section, there's the kids section, there's the bakery. And I loved that because it did, if I was someone utilizing the food bank, I would feel very safe and comfortable doing that.
Yeah. And the other thing I like to talk about when we're talking about the market is just the integral part our volunteers play, like both of your organizations, play in the uplifting of all of our clients. To see quite often, when our clients arrive, of course they're dealing with some tough circumstances, and quite often their body language really does show that. And our volunteers are just so great at taking them through the market, assisting them through the choices that they can make. And when they leave, you can see that our clients feel better, and it is about empowerment and dignity and making them feel like it's going to be okay. Yeah.
But one thing too I forgot to mention with you, Lawrence, was one thing I really, really liked was when you did the Christmas banquet, because the Christmas banquet, it looked like it was decorated, it was beautiful, but you had real servers, and it was just like a normal, beautiful banquet. You didn't just put everybody in a gymnasium and had the hats and here's some slop for you. It was here you go. You deserve this beautiful meal, and it was a beautiful meal. Like, you want to talk about what you guys did there?
Yeah, and I think that's very much what we did with our recent February feast that we called it. But I think, same kind of idea. People will value what they receive if the experience is dignifying. Because there is an uplifting kind of process where people understand, hey, I'm worthy of this. Yeah, I'm worthy of this. This isn't something that simply is just being thrown at me. There's actually a deeper exchange going on. And I think whether it's pushing a cart around, a shop or a grocery store at the food bank, whether it's engaging in one of our, organization's events where, we are so focused on the humanity of that person and wanting them to experience, not just a meal, but an engagement, a conversation, an experience of community. And so we, especially at Metro for us, I can speak on our behalf, and I know it's true for both of these organizations, we just want people to understand that when they come into the doors of our organizations, or when they come to an event, that they are a family, that they belong. And I think, again, when we can collaborate with those similar sets of values, our entire community, our entire city, our entire valley, neighborhoods change. And our volunteers, often you'll find, actually cross over. So they might volunteer at the food bank or at the Gospel Mission, but they'll come and serve at one of our banquets or at one of our services. So we do actually have a lot of cross-pollination in that way.
Right. I want to talk to you guys for a second about the working poor. So there is a big population in places like Kelowna, because housing is a big issue for all types of income, and some people are working 2 or 3 types of jobs. Now, are they not able to access your services at places like the food bank if they have, if they're just, on paper it looks like they have money, but maybe they, can't actually access, enough money for food?
Well, for us, poverty is definitely at the root of why someone would turn to a food bank for assistance. And we find that many of our clients are exactly who you're describing. They do have, at times, 2 jobs. But again, it costs a lot to live here. Groceries are increasing, or the prices of groceries are increasing, and it can be really, really tough to make ends meet.
So who gets turned away?
We try to make sure that anybody who turns to us for food gets food.
Okay, so is there anything in this conversation that we've missed that, because I really want to, stress on the fact that all year long, people are in need. So in these, winter months, past Christmas, when, everybody's, the holiday spirit is kind of faded, and if you're getting into that kind of seasonal affect kind of situation, especially here in the Okanagan, how can people be more intentional about knowing that these services are here year-round and that you guys need that year-round support? Randy?
For me, I think it's, first of all, looking at my own situation and every day being thankful for what I have, and then reminding myself that not everybody is as fortunate as I am, and how can I reach out to those people. So I think we have to get into the mindset to daily remind ourselves that life's and the world's not all about us. There's other people out there, and if we can start living that lifestyle, the opportunities will come across, to reach out and help our neighbors.
For me, I think it would be to simply invite people to come to the food bank and experience what it is like you did. I think that is really, really impactful. And I think people just get the feeling when they're there, or perhaps understand that it really could be anybody, and maybe it is their neighbor. But I think it's also great for people to see what it is we're able to do with their donations, and they can see that when they are at the food bank.
In action.
I think there's a couple of great stories from ancient cultures that I absolutely love. I think there's certain ancient cultures that had this practice where they would store up some of their hard-earned work, and then at certain portions of the year, at certain times of the year, they would give it away. And there would be 4 or 5 times of the year that ancient cultures would do that, and usually around harvest seasons and when they were planting and sowing, all those things. But I think the principle is fantastic. Not every one of us is going to remember every single day to be generous or to seek out somebody else who's less fortunate than ourselves. And we don't necessarily always have time to go to these organizations. But we can be strategic across the year. And I think personally, like Randy said, I think that I want to encourage people, when you're walking down the street, when you're going for that lunch break, when you come across somebody that perhaps you would normally not interface with, you would not normally have something in common with, that maybe you just would take that time to buy someone a coffee, or just say, hey, what's your story? Are you okay? Can I help you? And just that simple interaction of being seen is so powerful for people. It provides hope. And I think hope is a very poorly sourced commodity in our culture today. And people, it's in short supply. And I think that whether it's the winter months or the summer months, we have excuses that we create as to why we can walk past people and why we can ignore them and hope they didn't see us. But what if we just made a point of actually engaging with people, and just in the simplest acts of kindness, restored a sense of hope? There's a beautiful saying that I love to repeat, and that is that the mark of a healthy community is really, or the measurement of a healthy community is based on how we treat the most vulnerable among us. And I think if we can do that individually, one by one, don't look to the government, don't look to the city, don't look to the agencies that do that work. Start with yourself, start with your children, demonstrate and model it for others. And it can be the simplest acts of love and kindness, and it brings about hope. And that in turn changes our entire society.
Well, thank you guys for everything that you do here in the community.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Can I let folks know that they can donate securely online at cofoodbank.com?
Yeah. How do we give you money?
Well, like all of our organizations, all of us have websites. We all have means that you can donate online. And again, we encourage you to be generous. Let's be a culture that's generous. And every single one of the organizations represented on this chair, on this couch, do incredible work. And I would love to see people just be generous.
Yeah, even if it's generous with their time.
Mm-hmm.
So Metro, Gospel Mission, Food Bank, those are the ways that you can write your checks to. Thanks to you guys so much.
Real Deal TV.
Each week on The Real Deal, we have a food and beverage pairing. And this week, I'm so excited. We have Cheesemongers, which is a real thing, and we have a sommelier here with us. So I want to introduce you guys to Philip and Desiree, Young and Percival, and to Eliana from Roche. So I just want to talk to you guys first a little bit. So have you had this dream of being a cheesemonger your whole life? Like, have you loved cheese your whole life?
I've absolutely loved cheese my whole life. I grew up in London, in England, and my parents would take me over to France 4 or 5 times a year. And as we were driving through France, we'd always stop off at lovely little farms and lovely creameries, and we'd taste the cheese and purchase it and spend our whole time we were in France eating cheese. And that's where my love of cheese grew from.
Okay, so you grew up loving cheese, and where did Desiree enter the picture? How did you bring her along on your cheese dream?
Yeah. Well, we actually lived in Ireland for a couple of years when we first got together, and we lived on the west coast of Ireland in a beautiful town called Galway. And yeah, we were young and in love there. We're still very much in love.
We were young then.
Yeah, we were a bit younger then. And there's a wonderful cheesemongers in Galway called Sheridan's Cheesemongers. And the first time we walked in there, we're just like, wow, what an amazing shop this is. And I think from that moment, we thought we need to do this. We need to have a shop like this and be selling beautiful cheeses to people.
Yeah.
And we'd go there every weekend and spend all our hard-earned earnings just buying some wonderful cheese and taking it back and drinking lots of lovely wine
And Guinness.
and Guinness, yeah.
Right.
And yeah, really that's where this story began. And we've always wanted that cheese store, but the dream got a little bit lost as we got older and had kids and everything like that. But our youngest just went into kindergarten, and we were in Mexico at the tail end of 2017 with my family, who flew out from England to meet us, and they said, so what about that cheese shop? What's going on with that? And we were like, yeah, we should get back to that idea.
They reignited the dream.
So we came back, and I came home from work one night, and Desiree said, I'm pushing ahead with it. We're doing the cheese thing.
Doing it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so here we are today.
Come on, I mean, you've got a business that makes everybody, it's hard for us to find somebody who doesn't love cheese.
Our experience that we're going to bring to Kelowna is kind of the European style cheesemonger. So the shop that we want to have is that brick and mortar style. We want people to be able to come in and taste the cheeses before they buy. We want to see the expressions on their face as they experience something new. And a good cheesemonger, you should be able to come in, and even if you have no idea what you're looking for, they should start asking you questions. Questions like, what kind of cheeses do you like? You like cheddar? Oh, have you ever tried an aged Gouda? Try this, try this, try this, try this. And you should always walk out really, really, really excited with the cheese that you're bringing home. So that's the missing element that we have in town. Although there are some few places that you can get great fine cheese, you can't taste it before you buy it. So in a cheese shop, you can taste few of them before you buy anything.
And like you say, they're expensive, so you're putting your money into it.
It's
and
an
if you
investment,
don't like it,
yes. But treat yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Treat yourself. Oh, I love that.
Treat yourself.
So the yin to the yang of cheese is wine, and we have Roche Wineries here today, Eliana, who is a wine ninja. How do you get the designation wine ninja?
Self-proclaimed.
Well, I'm going to be a wine ninja. But you are a sommelier.
Yes,
and
I
what
am.
else? What's your role here at Roche?
I'm the executive manager at Roche Wines, and so I do marketing, sales, and basically tell our story to the Okanagan.
And where are you located?
We're located on the Naramata Bench, just above beautiful Penticton on Upper Bench Road.
Awesome. So we're going to make sure that you guys have all of this information. There's a lot of wineries down there. And tell us what makes your wine so special, because I've tasted your wine and it's amazing.
Well, the fact that we have 2 French-trained winemakers, Penelope Roche, 6th-generation winemaker from Bordeaux, France, and Dylan Roche, North Vancouver born, but basically ended up moving to France to be a tour guide, and then totally got converted into wine, ended up enrolling in enology and viticulture in Beaune, and the 2 of them met doing harvest in New Zealand. So it was kind of a
that's
a little bit of a romance.
Yeah, that's a man. Between the 2 of you, you guys got like the perfect
we actually
stories.
met in Australia picking fruit. So.
Oh, did you? Let's pretend you met in France eating cheese, okay? For this night. Just kidding. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in the wine industry? How long have you been involved?
I actually had a culinary background previous, and one day I said to myself, I'm tired of smelling like food all the time, even though I love
Not
food.
cheese, though.
Cheese is fantastic. And I said, I like wine. Let's see how it goes together.
I love that.
And so I ended up doing my sommelier diploma and working in the wine industry for many years.
Many years? How many years? Oh, you don't want to say.
Wine ninja years. 18.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we're famous in the Okanagan Valley here in Canada for our wine, and now we're going to be famous for our cheese, because now we get to. So we want to get to some pairing here, because that's what our whole segment is about. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about the cheese that we're going to have, and then Eliana, you can tell us what wine goes with it, so we
Absolutely.
can educate everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
This is the good part.
I know, I'm so
Okay.
excited.
The fun stuff.
I'm trying to like.
Okay, so the one that I'm going to start with is actually this beautiful little blue here. So this blue is a unique type of blue, and it is also an award winner. So this cheese just won the Best Blue Cheese Award at the recent Canadian Cheese Awards 2018.
Wow.
It's a beautiful little number because we tend to associate blue cheeses with being creamy and salty and fruity, and this is none of those things. So you can see the texture in it, that it's actually quite pliable. It's more like a Morbier. And the blue lines that are running through it is where you get your tiny, tiny little bit of salt element, but the flavors in it are more woodsy and earthy and fresh mushrooms, and then there's also a little bit of caramel.
Oh, wow.
So really, really, really exciting wine. It has this beautiful natural rind to it as well.
Gorgeous. Okay, so while Desiree is getting us that blue cheese ready, what wine would you pair with that cheese?
We have the perfect wine. We have this wine, which is made out of the Schönberger grape. It's 20-year-old vines that we have on the property. And we make a wine called Arôme, which is a beautiful name for an aromatic wine. And guess what? This one pairs perfectly with the cheese.
What were the chances? I'm so excited. Okay, so you're gonna pour us some of the Arôme. I love that name.
Arôme. You can roll the R's.
I will. It makes me feel cooler. Arôme.
Arôme.
All right. So we got, and what was the name of that one again?
Arôme.
Oh, it is. I thought that was just the grape. Okay.
Cheers, thank you.
So for you. Okay, and then.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes.
How do we do this?
Also,
What's the best way?
I just want to point out to people about the raisin bleu that this is a really delicate cheese. That's why we're starting with this one instead of the brie typically. You would normally start with your soft plumy rind, but the raisin bleu is so delicate. It's a great one for people that are looking to appreciate blue cheese, but it's also interesting enough for the blue cheese eater.
Oh, so like
it's really different.
Just getting into the market with it.
So go
it's
ahead.
like your gateway cheese.
Go ahead, Ken.
Got it.
Do
Should we
do
cheers first and then
Yes.
we're going to take the cheers?
Cheers.
Okay, I'm going to take a piece of this.
Okay, go ahead.
That is incredible. Yep, I like it.
So it's got like a chew to it, so it doesn't have that creamy component that most blue cheeses do have.
I love it.
So it's
Kind of hits like on the back of the. Listen to me, I feel like
yeah.
such an expert. It hits on the back of your tongue, kind of. It's got that beautiful. It's really creamy. Like it's so good.
Even though it's like it's a pliable cheese, but it's a lot more solid. Not in the creamy sense that people would normally think of a blue cheese.
I love it.
And it goes really well with the wine
does.
of
It balances it out, brings the acidity to it. Just a beautiful compliment.
It is. It's fantastic. Okay, put that one in my purse. Okay, what's next?
Okay, so this beauty here is called Fleumier, which is a play on words for, in French, flower farmer.
Oh.
This is a beautiful cheese from Quebec as well. They've been making it for many, many, many years. It is very rich and lush in its texture, and the flavor is nice and tangy with a little bit of fruit. You could literally eat this cheese for breakfast, lunch, dinner, brunch, book club, whatever. It's absolutely amazing.
Challenge
It's gonna be hard to stop. It's gonna be hard to eat, or hard to stop eating it for sure.
Okay, so what would you pair with that glorious cheese? That sounds like a feminine cheese, by the way. Yeah, I love it. What would you pair with that, Eliana?
We have, again, another perfect pairing. So this is our 2016 Tradition Chardonnay.
Okay. Oh.
Best sound in the world.
Pretty, hey?
And so this one we produce at the winery. Only the second vintage we've ever done, but it's amazing with the cheese.
It's such
beautiful, buttery.
Yeah. Oh, buttery cheese, buttery wine.
Buttery wine, match made in heaven.
Yeah, I'll say. So the Chardonnay, okay.
So make sure that when you're trying the cheese, you get that lovely creaminess and, oops, sorry, go ahead, honey.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So the creaminess right underneath the cream line, So right underneath the rind is the cream line. That's the gooey, beautiful part of it. And then
Stop,
and
you
then
had
the-
me at hello.
I
Okay.
know. This is the perfect ripeness for this cheese, to my liking. Some people prefer it ripe all the way through.
Okay.
But I really like it, the distinction between the paste, the cream line, and the rind, because I think you get
The
lots of
paste, the
beautiful
cream
aromas.
line, and the rind. I love it. Wow.
And a hint of nuttiness as
Oh,
well,
that
which
is so
complements with the
good.
wine.
It's nice and tangy, which lends really well to the wine. I'll let Eliana speak to that one.
Wow.
So there's such a beautiful balance in this wine. It's got the earthy tones of the cheese, which just mirrors perfectly with the Chardonnay. Really long lingering finish. It's absolutely amazing.
That is fantastic. Both of them together is just, my mouth is singing. It's so good.
I love this one.
All right. So good. If you have a food or beverage company that you would like featured on The Real Deal, then make sure you drop us a line to the info@therealdealtv.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Cheers, you guys. Cheers to cheers.
Cheers.
I drank mine. It was so delicious.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun here pairing wine and cheese, but it is important to remember to always drink responsibly.